Hey everybody, it's Charlie from DM Moto, and if somebody walked up to me off the street and said, I want to ride a motorcycle, what should I buy on the new market? Without me knowing anything else about that person, I would answer this, the Kawasaki Z500. This bike does the most for the least amount of money. If you want to ride casual, just every few weekends or so once you have time, hop on a Z500, you're going to have a blast. If you want to ride daily, get a Z500. It's going to be fuel efficient, it's going to be cheap to put tires on, and brakes and oil changes are going to be easy. If you're a newer rider, and there's a chance you might dump it down, or let's be honest, older riders have that sometimes too, go ahead, get this. The SE model comes with frame sliders built on so that if you tip it over onto its side or send it down some asphalt, it's going to reduce the chance of damaging the expensive parts of the motorcycle. And if you're a veteran rider who has been riding for a long time and just wants something lightweight and carefree to go enjoy two wheels on, this is going to be cheap to insure, it's going to take up minimal space in your garage, and above all of that, it's going to put a smile on your face. And that right there is what I love about motorcycling, is the fun factor, and that is what the Z500 does so well. Now, if you do want to see more on this bike, check the link below. We've got a DM commuter fuel economy test where we test out the fuel economy and talk about what the bike would be like to ride in daily riding sort of scenarios. I actually had a Z500 SE a few years ago as well, so we've got a review on that one, maybe slightly less high quality audio and fewer things to say. But this one is a 2026 model. Not really seeing any meaningful changes over the last few years, ever since we got the displacement bump from the Z400. Now we're sitting at 451 cc, which Kawasaki takes the liberty to rounding up to 500. Sure, why not? We compared it against the Honda CB500F. You can find that video linked below as well. And despite that bike having some extra displacement, being a little closer to 500, I still chose this one as my preference. This one is that SE model, which is getting you this awesome paint combo. I kind of liked the dark with the red that we had a few years ago from the 2024 model, but this one still sharp. I love the red wheels, I love the red accents. SE package also getting you these frame sliders, which I mentioned, a radiator guard up in there. It's getting you a more high quality TFT display, giving you a good amount of information for a bike at this price category. It's also giving you this little bit of wind protection, which initially I thought was silly, but when I rode this back to back with the Honda CB, I did find that little wind shield very useful at highway speeds. I think that's about it. Well, the SE model also gets you these slight tank protector grips there. Have I been dirtying this up? I'm sorry, Kawasaki. This must have been something. Oh, it's just some gunk. It's just gunk. You guys can clean that off. This bike does come with ABS as well, anti-lock braking. I'm a big proponent of ABS, regardless of if you are a newer rider or not, because emergencies happen, and when they do, you tend to grab a fistful of brake, and you're at risk of dumping the bike. So even if you're very familiar with threshold braking, do it with ABS. Then you're covered in case you screw something up. So let's throw a leg over this bike, shall we? Let's go for a little ride. I'm actually a bit sad because it's going home today. Technically going home and then going back to some other review outlet. This one's going back to Kawasaki headquarters. Turning it on, you see even in this bright sunlight, we do have a good view of this little gauge cluster. We see it on a ton of Kawasaki products. It's very useful, including showing you engine coolant temp, and average fuel economy, distance, time, tachometer. You can rearrange how the gauge looks, you can rearrange the colors. This little 500, and I've stalled it. It's been a week or so since I've ridden, and just a little casual there on the accelerator. This little 500 motor is fantastic. I've ridden it in all of the different Kawasaki products, aside from the KLE 500. I will be getting that here soon, doing my coverage on that one. I'm really excited about that bike. But it's got just enough grunt now that we're up to the slightly larger displacement, and it's got a lot of revs to really feel fun. I get on this motorcycle and I get the joy of singing out on a small displacement bike like this. And of course, lightweight, well under 400 pounds. I can do something like toss it around a little parking lot like this. really shift my weight around, have a lot of fun, grab a little rear brake, do some really tight corners. If you're doing something like taking your MSF course, this would be a very easy bike to do it on. It's lightweight, it's fairly low seat height as well, so myself at 5'10", 32-inch inseam, I can come to a stop, put my feet down. I'm standing right now with both feet well over the seat. Woo! No traction control, so if you grab a fistful of throttle like that on some sand, you will spin it out. You can also get the front end up. Definitely a good bike to learn a little bit of that throttle control. Now there's obviously a lot I love about the Z500, or else I wouldn't have started the video out the way I did. But if I really had to summarize it more so than what I already did, Kawasaki did a fantastic job at baking just enough character into this bike to make it fun for any sort of riding, while still being at that affordable price point. It's got just enough power up at the high end that between the sound and the vibration and the pull, you're gonna feel a little bit of that fizz and that fun factor that you get on a motorcycle that has a little bit of extra power. I mean, 51 peak horsepower is not a huge figure, but on a lighter weight bike like this that makes it up at high revs, it's just giving you a taste of, ooh, oh, I'm going quick. I'm really accelerating here. So like if well, I'll show you at the next time we're at a stoplight and I get to take off from there. You'll see we'll do a full pull. Ergonomics are great. You got a slight lean forward here where you can kind of sit upright, again, as a kind of average sized person, a little bit of lean into the handlebars, and that makes it so when you're traveling up above about 50 miles per hour or so, the wind kind of pushes you upright and you sit very comfortably unless you deliberately lean forward. But I've got a nice comfortable reach to both of my levers, neither of which are adjustable. That's okay. I'd find myself mostly adjusting brake and clutch levers just as a novelty, not necessarily as a must-do. All the controls make sense, they're easy to get to, and again, with that slipper and assist clutch, so nice, light and easy to just pull in, change gears. You can do clutchless upshifts if you want, downshifts if you want. It's a lot of what you need and not much of what you don't. Now again, if you're somebody who's putting on a lot of miles, if you're somebody who's putting a lot of gear, passengers on, of course you're gonna want something else and you're gonna want more. But there are so many riders who don't get the chance to ride a bunch, or are just taking shorter rides, or just want something simple and straightforward. That's what this bike does for $7,000. You will likely notice that the seat has a fairly aggressive forward slide to it. Now, a lot of the Kawasaki Z bikes have this. I don't mind it so much on the Z500 because I'm kind of already leaning forward onto the handlebars, and because the tank is so slim, it feels right. But I didn't like it on the Z900 where I was doing a few more miles and the bike was a little bit larger. But just know if you're somebody who likes a very relaxed and upright riding position, you might want to look something a little bit more like the Honda CB. Quick gear check, we are rocking my suite of daily usable Revit gear. I've got the Ortez riding jeans on. They just look like normal jeans, but they got padding and extra reinforcement. We've got the off-track jacket. So it's kind of an adventure jacket that allows me to open up vents or put liners in, kind of, again, be proper looking depending on really whatever bike I've got. I've got the dirt gloves in sand color, kind of giving me protection. I asked for a specific set of gloves that has a little bit of wrist protection, as well as has little wrist sliders in case you fall. You want to slide on the asphalt. You don't want your wrist to grab, catch, and break. Up here at about highway speeds, I should point out, you are going to feel vibrations from this little 180-degree crank parallel twin. There's no getting around it. It's not some sort of butter smooth sewing machine type of engine. I particularly don't mind it because, again, this isn't the type of motorcycle that I would be purchasing in order to do longer highway slogs. But just know, if you plan on doing a lot of steady state speeds up around here, you do feel the vibrations in your butt, you do feel them in the handlebars, and you do see them in the mirrors. Here's our shot right here. Great little pull. I mean, that's a rev cut over 11,000 RPM with peak horsepower coming right over 10. That's fun. That's exciting. That brings me back to my Ninja 250 days of just really getting to fully scream it out. And because you're not dealing with that much peak horsepower, I can do that in a situation like that and scream up to redline and shift and then scream up to redline again without doing super illegal speeds. I don't even know if I was going faster than the speed limit at that point. I mean, that's fun. That's sport bike riding to me. And I say sport bike because, well, yes, you would say, oh, well, the Ninja 500 is a sport bike. This is the naked bike. Yeah, but they're essentially the same motorcycle with different plastics on there. And I would argue in today's day and age, for a lot of people, it makes more sense to buy the naked than it does a sport bike. Don't get me wrong, I love the look of a Ninja. I love the ride of a Ninja. But I like the ergos and I like the simplicity of a standard, of a naked like this. So I love that Kawasaki has essentially given us the fantastic Ninja formula in a nice stripped down version like this. I've got a good buddy who traded up from his Yamaha R3 up to a Kawasaki ZX6R. And he loves that bike, and I do too. It's a very cool bike. It sounds fantastic. He's got a pipe on there. But I went out riding with him in some of the canyons down here in Southern California. I was on this bike. He was on his ZX6R. More than double the horsepower, all the aero, all the, the ergos and everything like that, 2 extra cylinders. And I was out riding him easily, and I was having a fun time doing it. He was nervous. The bike was essentially riding him. What I love about this platform is I can ride it. I can stand on it. I can lean up forward. Despite me not being an expert rider, I feel like I have this bike by the reins. Now, do I love the sound that the engine makes? No. It essentially just makes noise and goes forward. And some sort of exhaust is not going to fix that. It's a 180 degree parallel twin, 451 cc's. This isn't a high character engine from a sound standpoint, but it gets the job done. And in fact, I don't really know of really any bikes that are making this type of power for this sort of price that are going to have any sort of character. I mean, you're going to have to be looking at much lower horsepower, air-cooled type bikes, more like cruisers, to be getting kind of fun, characteristic engines. Or you got to go used. I mean, go get yourself something like a Suzuki SV650 from 2008. Yeah, that's going to give you more character and fit this bill for a similar price. But if you're somebody who wants to have a new motorcycle with a warranty, serviceable at your local Kawasaki dealership, yeah, this is one of your best bets. I mean, gosh, from Kawasaki's lineup, you'd also be looking at the W230, which I love, don't get me wrong, but you can't ride if you're going to be doing any sort of highway riding regularly. And, I mean, it doesn't look, it looks different. Let me say that. I think it looks better, but it's different. And it doesn't have nearly the performance and go fast bits. Then you got something like a dual sport. I mean, you got the KLX 300. You can go and have a lot of fun on that. I'm a big proponent, but if you don't live by any dirt, you don't plan on taking in any dirt, this bike, again, is going to be a lot more fun and much, much more powerful. Those KLXs, even the Supermoto, is going to have I mean, it's going to be singing to do highway speeds, whereas this could totally do highway speeds. It's just vibrating a little bit. Talked about the Ninja. Pretty much just get that if you have to have the sport bike look, or maybe if you really need the aero to go a few miles per hour faster. But then you got that KLE, and it's kind of tough shooting this Z500 review knowing that the KLE's out there because, I mean, it's going to cost a little bit more, but I've heard it corners fantastic. I heard it's a great all-around sort of bike, and still got this engine. You're going to have a little bit more weight as well, though, so it's probably not quite as fun and casual. I guess the only reason I would say don't buy the Z500 is if you don't like the looks. I think that's a big part. If you regularly are going to have passengers or a lot of weight, or if you yourself are a larger rider. That's kind of the only reason I would say jump up to the 650. Because the 650 engine, yes, it makes more power. Yes, you'll go quicker and faster explicitly. However, it's not going to sound any better. You're still going to be limited by the speed limit. You're still going to be limited more or less by how much you want to push the envelope. It's going to be a heavier bike. It's going to be a more costly bike to insure, and it's going to cost more from the dealership. This 500 now makes enough peak power where I've never been on a Ninja 500 or a Z500 and thought, man, I wish I were on the 650. Now, there's been times where I've thought, I wish I were on the 900 or the 1100 or something that's making, 100 horsepower. That's a totally different type of machine. But the horsepower bump between the 500 and the 650 is virtually irrelevant for anyone of normal size riding normal sort of riding. Now, it would be a crime not to do at least a little bit of twisty fun riding here on the Z before we wrap up the review. Of course, no ride modes. You just ride. Very great little cockpit again to be able to lean down onto. And sometimes just being out here, that's all that matters. Doesn't matter how many horsepower you have, how many electronic features you have on a bike. It's the fact that you can be out here on two wheels. Let's go ahead and wrap it up right here. So Kawasaki has really nailed this class of bike. The fact that we now have a naked, a sport bike, an adventure bike, all ripping this 500cc engine. I'll just call it 500 even though it's technically smaller. 500 class engine. You would think Honda would have it locked down, and Honda has all the products too, but they just lack the pizzazz that the Kawis have. So you got a reliable, fun, charismatic platform, engine, all of it right here. This is a great bike for $7,000. So thank you all so much for watching. If you do want to see more on the Kawasaki Z500, check the link below. Like I said, we've got quite a few videos on this one at this point. Big shout out to Revit and Rye for the gear, and we'll see you on the next one. I'm Charlie from DM Moto, and as always, ride on.